Hey guys, Kinggath here with another episode of the Kinggath podcast. Today's guest is working on a game I think a lot of you are going to want to go and give a try. Welcome James and I forgot the name of the software company, but you were working on the game Isles of Adalar. That's what I remember, and God, I hope I pronounced that correctly because I don't remember you saying it in all the videos I've watched. I just see that. Is that how it's pronounced? Adalar?
Yeah, actually, it's funny you say that because it used to be a different name. If you look on our channel, you'll see that we used to be Isles of Arthanos. But we
Okay.
changed the name because people kept pronouncing it in multiple different ways. And so I specifically thought that with the way it's spelled out, Adalar, it's kind of like you phonetically read it out to yourself. So,
Right.
no, that's it.
Oh, perfect. Well, that was a good move then, because yeah, that is naturally how I wanted to read it. So I was like, but maybe because whenever you get into fantasy stuff, like people can get wacky with their pronunciation.
Yeah, it could really be anything, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks
So
for having me on.
yeah, I appreciate you talking with me because it's I've noticed a trend in my podcast is that, and not intentional, but we are dumping on AAA studios more and more because the practices are getting shadier and shadier. And most of my audience is here because of my work on Fallout 4 mods. So a lot of Bethesda fans, and Bethesda in particular, is under heavy scrutiny after 76. And just a few days ago, they announced their subscription plan, and people are up in arms about it. And so I've been finding myself drawn more and more to indie studios because I'm like, they could be our savior. They can still deliver high quality games. And your game, Isles of Adalar, looked particularly interesting because to me it screamed Morrowind. Like it just looks like someone took Morrowind and brought it into the future. Is that an accurate description of what you were going for, or is that just coincidence?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Morrowind was a huge influential game on me. I mean, I remember I was playing that game. I was like 11, 12 years old, and I used to look at the map that it came with to figure out where I was going.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Bethesda in general has been influence on me, and like they've been my favorite games growing up. And yeah, it is kind of sad to see the industry going the way it is, and I find myself not really being interested in a lot of the different games that are coming out, and so
Yeah,
we
isn't
just
that
wanted to make a
weird?
game that we wanted to play, you know?
What a weird
That's
thing.
us.
Like I remember like growing up back then, and then every game that would come out, and like this went on for. I mean, I've only noticed this that I stopped caring a few years ago, but it's just like all the games look the same to me now. And maybe this is me getting old and like grouchy or something, but I don't think it is. I think the
Well, I
games are
think
getting
you're
stale.
also more in tune to the design. So like
Sure,
you see
sure.
the functionality under the hood. You know, the same thing when I play games. Which is why I won't play grindy games anymore.
Yeah.
Because once I figure out how the mechanics work, I really don't want to engage unless there's like story driving me through.
Yeah, I felt that for a long time with games with the story part. Is like I realized that once the story elements were over, I was done with the game. Like I couldn't do I could never chase achievements. It just never interested me.
Oh yeah, I used to do that as a kid. Yeah, I think now like I'll play the story and say
Uh-huh.
we're playing something like let's just say the Outer Worlds, for example.
Sure. Oh, I'm so excited to
I'll
finally find some
there's
time for that.
yeah, I have to wait a few months until I can actually touch it, but like there's like a range of progression where it
Yeah.
feels really good, and so I like going through that. It's usually like the first half,
Right.
and so I like going through that with different builds even after I know the story. But then if I stop encountering new areas and quests, then I will just bow out. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
once you see the mechanics, it's just like you can't unsee it, you know?
Right, right. Yeah, I find that with even with Bethesda's titles is when I go through the first time, I will go through and do every little thing, and then every other time I play through it, it's only just to get to those story bites and like find if I stumble across a side quest I somehow missed or something. Otherwise, I'm checked out. I just don't care. So yeah, I don't need to go get every item out of every dungeon. Like it's just too much time.
You know, it's funny. I do the opposite. I usually the first time I play either a Bethesda game or that type of big RPG, I kind of go through the story, the main story first, and then on my
Okay.
second playthroughs, I'll kind of veer off more. Well, usually they design the stories to kind of have some fake urgency, so that's probably why I do it too.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
true. I think that's one of the things where I lose a lot in the games. Like with Fallout 4, they really tried to push the urgency feel early on, and then if you let yourself get lured off by side quests, you're just like, oh, the urgency is totally false, and it pulls you right
yeah,
out
I
of
mean,
it.
because again, seeing the man behind the curtain, but.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, I
yeah,
usually get to the point just for curiosity, and then I feel like I have like a freedom after that. I'm like, okay, now I can just do whatever I want. There's no even if the game is not doing that good of a job at conveying the urgency.
Right.
Mentally, still, I'm like, I need to beat the game first, just in my head. But
That I should try that. Maybe I'll try that with Outer Worlds because I don't have a lot of time to game. I think I know why you don't because you're coming up on a release day real quick here. But actually, by the time this airs, it will be go download a demo right now, which we'll talk about that in a second. But that might be the way I approach my next RPG because that would be freeing. Of like, okay, now I've seen the story and I got to feel through all the emotional urgency that was there because obviously it's fairly limited because they always have to. When they're dealing with side quests, they can't assume you're anywhere in particular in the main story.
Idea where you are. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it always has to be disconnected. So you could, if you focus on the main story all at once, you can be sure that all those beats hit you at the pace that the developer anticipated. That's a good idea. Wish I'd have thought of that years ago.
That's actually part of why I do it too, because they can't account for the quests you've already done most of the time.
Yeah.
The side quests don't usually have an outcome on the end.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I don't feel like I'm missing anything.
Right.
So like it just relieves that kind of the gas pedal pressure, then I can slow down and then really look at stuff.
And really explore, yeah. Yeah, I think for me it's always been once I get to the final ending of any of those games, I feel like the character is done and then I don't want to play anymore. Because to me, that's the story that's the best. Like and which is ironic because most people complain about Bethesda games as their stories not being the best. But I always find the main story is gonna be generally the most engaging one, the one's gonna pull me along. So then I feel like once I'm done with that, none of the other stories left in the game are gonna be as good. So I'm not gonna be as engaged. Is always my thinking. But I think that's just me convincing myself of that for some weird reason.
They're definitely the most in your face.
Right.
I think a lot of the side stuff will be more subtle. Like you'll find stuff that's like not, directly conveyed to you, like through reading the different terminals or talking to different characters in different ways and stuff like that.
Yeah, it won't be as big. Won't be as big a flashy set pieces, but it could still be deep stories if you're willing to look for the pieces.
Like for New Vegas, one of my biggest memories of that game is the Sunset Sarsaparilla story.
Sure.
But the main quest for that game is awesome though. So I mean, that's a bad example, but it's just a good example of a really good side quest.
Right. There's still some really great side quests.
That just happen to still be dwarfed by that game's main quest.
Yeah, that main quest, man, I have love-hate relationship with that one because I love up to the moment you get spoiler alerts for anybody who hasn't finished.
For anyone who hasn't played New Vegas yet.
Wait, what are you doing? Get off! Turn this podcast off. Go play New Vegas. But like once you get to the point where you reach Benny and Yes Man, where it like opens up to you, that's when I get pulled out of it because I'm like, oh, I don't want it to be open-ended. Like I love the I still am a huge fan of linear story games just because I know there's tons of excitement and I know I'm not missing anything. Whereas once I get to those forked paths, then I feel like, okay, now none of the tentpole moments can happen anymore because they wouldn't have invested. And this is probably what you said earlier. This is the developer and me being cynical and like knowing how it works behind the curtains. Is I'm now like, all right, well they're only going to spend money on stuff that everybody gets to see, and that's what I want to see.
What's funny is that moment is what made me really love the game because it's like they knew how Bethesda had designed their games, and it was actually just before that moment too. Like when you first confront Benny in the casino.
Mm-hmm.
So they basically, tell you just to go straight to him, which is, if you play the Bethesda games, you're just trained that if you just walk into any situation, you don't have to worry about anything.
Right.
But then when I walked into Benny and I'm like, oh, whatever, I'll do this, no problem. And then like they killed me after I picked the wrong dialogue choice. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I was like, of course, they stripped my weapons in the beginning. Like if I talk shit, they're going to kill me.
Yeah.
So I was like, I realized then that the game gave me more respect as like for intelligence than what the Bethesda games were typically doing. Like they really hold your hand in a way. No, I'm not trying to be mean, but
yeah,
I would give a Bethesda game to someone who's getting into gaming, and then I would give New Vegas to someone who's more experienced.
Yeah, that's a great point. I actually just watched a really cool video somebody did where they, I need to find the channel and post it for everybody to see if they haven't already. But this guy basically realized that his wife was talking very strangely about the games she would watch him play. So he sat her down and had her play a bunch of like classic titles with no instruction and just watched her try and learn her way through the games, and how that we've just kind of all accepted this language of video games. Like there's certain things that now, because gaming's been it's been around for 30 years, in the general sphere at home and home game consoles, and pretty mainstream for at least the last 10. That you just can game companies can just assume people have a certain amount of knowledge, but and so then it keeps building on that. But yeah, I think the Bethesda definitely is in that super it's in that super mainstream category of like their hand holding. I think probably to a fault now. They probably took it too far.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because I think that before it was still that way. It was just that I think like as a kid growing up, I sucked at everything until I beat my head against the wall until
Right.
I finally figured it out. So I think that I mean, yeah, they make it more accessible now, I think, but like, so I remember Morrowind is like probably my favorite game ever, but that became my favorite when I really reflected on it and how it made me feel. But as a
Sure.
kid, I liked Oblivion the most because it was the first one that I was able to beat,
Right.
you know, and so but that's why they do it, right? Because I literally couldn't even beat Morrowind because I hated reading and I hated the way they did their dialogue in particular.
Right.
And I hated the way that the quest, like the direction for the quest it was not descriptive enough. And then,
Yeah.
so like as a kid, but I loved the way it transported me into that world and how I felt like I was there and like I was
Right.
absorbed in it. And I played Morrowind for tons of hours, like most people do the Bethesda games, but I never beat it, but I still just
Sure.
loved it to death,
Yeah, I was the same
you
way. I
know?
never beat it either because it was, well, first of all, I would always break the game before I even got to an opportunity to care about the story.
I see. Yep.
You know, like because that was one of those the parts of that game that was a double edged sword, is that it was very easy to make a character that was God very early. So then it became
Yeah,
then the
making
challenge is
spells.
gone, and yeah, with making spells. So then you trivialize the game, and then it's not fun anymore, which is one of those kind of interesting psychological things about gaming, is that we create, like, the challenge is actually what we crave. And so if you let people break it, they actually will hate your game, which is kind of funny.
Yeah, so one of my biggest memories of Morrowind is like a negative memory is pretty early on you're told to go find like a key, like a Dwemer key inside of a ruin.
Uh-huh.
And so I remember specifically I looking at that stupid, not stupid, I love the thing, the physical map it came with,
Yeah.
and trying to figure out where this place was. And so I went in this dungeon, I was searching for over an hour trying to find this key, only to find out I was in the wrong dungeon. And I exit the dungeon and I could like see the entrance to the dungeon it wanted me to go in from where I was. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? But that goes to where it wasn't descriptive enough. Like
Right.
if they would have found more of a balance between ambiguity and description and then not giving you the waypoint directly at it,
Yeah.
but that was one of those times where I was like, damn, man, I just wasted like hour and a half trying to find this stupid thing and it's right there. But I just happened to go into the wrong place.
Yeah. It's a tough one to walk in that balance. I'm curious where you guys end up with Isles of Adalar, because you want accessibility in the sense that what I'm finding, I think, is the magic sauce, and I don't know where the correct line is, but it seems to be somewhere along the lines of, I think it's better if they started out more complex and difficult and then slowly give you ways to get past the things they know players are going to become bored of. For example, if you started out some of your quests with making the player search for stuff and then introduce maybe an ability later that said, we'll highlight all the objectives directly for you. So then when you get tired of reading and doing that, then you just get to, you know what I mean? Where you can kind of gate the solutions to some of these problems as opposed to just putting them in right off the bat and making the game baby mode.
Yeah, well, I guess I would go for it. Well, I'll tell you our solution
Okay.
specifically for that problem I mentioned is what we're going to do is we'll tell you like a description, but we'll also give you like a waypoint marker that is near the area. So like we'll
Okay.
tell you a location it is near, and then we might reveal that location on the map if you haven't found it, but you can't just teleport there. So you'd know that it's near a specific location, so you'd know you're in the area.
Okay.
We also thought about the idea of doing like circular areas, like an actual circular area.
Okay.
But I think we're just going to go more with descriptions, but have like actual solid foundation of its location relative to something that is permanent in the world. So you would know, like it'd be northwest of blank, and you'll see blank on your map marker.
Gotcha.
And then
Okay.
we'll also have like the physical signs that have the wording on it and stuff like that.
Right.
But yeah, so my goal is to not have the experience that I had that I just described to you. But
Yeah.
but it is like you don't want to go too hard on it because if you make it baby mode, then people like me are going to be just like, nah, I don't care
Right.
anymore. You know?
Yeah, and that's the tough one, right? Of figuring out what is the correct number of people to handhold. Because like there's the level, there's the hardcore players who want zero hand holding. They will read through as much text. They want the puzzles in the text, and then there are the people that are like, I just want to smash buttons. Like, so it's like you got to
Yeah.
find where on that spectrum you want to grab people.
Yeah. Our goal is just get really, really descriptive, and then on top of that, you could probably ask NPCs that are near the area. That'll probably give you a hint.
Sure.
But
I guess before we go any further, I'm doing you a disservice. Let's talk about, give people an explanation of what your project is, so that people who are only tuning in for the first 20 minutes get a feel for what they could find out, because they can go play your game right now. There's a demo of it available. It's really cool looking, and I especially love your pro mod support. In fact, if you look at the Steam page of it, everybody, Isles of Adalar it's just got two major features listed, and that it's a single player RPG, which is something we all love, and that it's built around a built-in editor. So it's effectively like got the creation kit built right into the game. So why don't you take it from here and describe to people what they should expect from Isles of Adalar?
yeah, so basically we wanted to take that formula from Bethesda that we like and then tweak the things that we don't like to fit our preference. So like one thing you mentioned was having the mod tools inside the game itself and trying to remove that barrier of accessibility to get more content being made. Like we really work hard making that user friendly, and that's big for this audience. But you mentioned it's single player, but we also have got support for co-op, which is optional, by the way. So you can play single player if you want, but I always wanted to play Morrowind, for example, with a friend, because during that time I was playing RuneScape and I was like, man, if I could play with my friends like doing RuneScape and Morrowind, oh my god, which now you can. But
yeah.
but yeah, so the two big things are, optional co-op, the mod tools inside of it, and then there's some other things like we've made our combat, trying to make it more engaging, like try to find the balance between Dark Souls and Elder Scrolls, which I know everyone compares everything to Dark Souls, but we literally did lift mechanics from Dark Souls and then just try to tweak them to be a little bit more forgiving.
Well, one of the things that Bethesda is often, what's the phrase I want? I'll just say people complain about is their melee combat being bad. Yours looked very, very interesting and dynamic. A lot of dodging. It was very fast paced and visceral. Like that all seemed like positives.
Yeah. Oh, so actually, what I should say real quick is we have multiple videos on our YouTube channel. So search for Peakway Software or search Isles of Adalar. And so I would recommend, if anyone who's interested from what they've heard so far, watch either the video on the combat and the level editor separately, and that gives you a really more in-depth idea of what we're talking about.
Sure.
Because the trailer's really short, and you can't really get a good feel for those things.
Well, and remind me at the end, after we're done, I'll see if you have any footage I can use as the background of this, so people could be watching some of that while they're listening to us.
Oh yeah, definitely, I can give you that.
Sweet.
But yeah, so I guess, do you want me to run off the mechanics or just more of
yeah, go whatever you want to talk about, man. I think people that watch my stuff and who play Elder Scrolls games are gonna love what you've got going on here. It looks like it's got obviously the bones of something like Morrowind. Excuse me. The fact that you're really pro mod and editor support, I think, is huge. And then, like you said, and I'm sorry I didn't mention that initially with the co-op part, adding co-op right from the get-go into that experience is absolutely what people wanted. Like when Fallout 76 came out, the diehard fans, I would say a lot of fans of Fallout, were disappointed that it wasn't a co-op, that it was just kind of more. I mean, like you said, we can recognize a pattern. To me, it was like, okay, that's clearly just a looter shooter. Like that's not what I want to be playing. Without the NPCs and story. And so you have basically addressed all these things. You've got the things like the dream features that we want in a Elder Scrolls game. You've got them. You've got the simple editor, so you can get lots of them.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Right in from the get-go. So go ahead. Go talk about the other features you got going
on. So I guess I was reminded. So the co-op, I wanted to say, it does work in the demo. So that you can do 2-player co-op with someone in a demo. So get your friend and go through and play the demo. When we release, we're going to expand that to 4, but we just wanted to keep it to something we can contain and test properly, because we only have 3 people, so we can't really properly test out 4 players right now.
Right, you guys are ultimate indie team. Super
yeah,
lean.
it's kind of to our detriment, I will say. There's a lot of
big
things that
undertaking.
I'm like, I'm like, damn, I kind of wish that, I wish that we would have started with something small, but at the same time, this is the game I always wanted to make, or the type of game I always wanted to make. So I like the fact that we're chasing something I'm personally interested in.
Yeah.
But getting back to what we were talking about, the combat though, is, so we tried to make it feel not floaty. That's what everyone describes it, right?
Right.
So we actually make it so you can't move in every direction while you're attacking. So when you attack, you have to commit to an attack, just like similar to Dark Souls. And it's all stamina based, and you have penalties for running out of stamina. They prevent you from attacking, and you're vulnerable and all that stuff. And I mean, the mechanics are really just like Dark Souls. We just really tweaked it to make it more forgiving and also make it faster. That was one of the other problems I've had with Dark Souls when I played it.
Sure. It can feel a little bit sluggish early on.
Yeah. So like when you get hit, if you take enough damage, you'll actually stagger, and the enemies do the same thing. And when you block and hit, it actually forces you to move backwards. So like we're trying to make you feel the velocity of that.
Yeah.
And something we actually talked about, because you asked about the FOV, is that we actually use our full body character in the first person mode, so it's not just floating arms. So when the
Right,
character
right.
so when the character animates to like move, like do the hurt animation, like you get staggered, you actually get that movement of the camera the way the
Yeah.
body is animating, and so that's
Yeah,
part of how we try to make it feel more physical.
it definitely did it. At first, I thought I was looking at virtual reality footage because that has the same thing going on where it's got the real narrow
the
FOVs.
arms,
So yeah, it looks kind of like odd on the sides of the screen when they're moving. Like in still shots, it looks perfect. But yeah, it gives it that really fast-paced, actiony feel. I just think that any improvements to combat will be a welcome, especially melee combat, will be a huge welcome addition to Bethesda, to Elder Scrolls players, because the combat in the melee combat, even with mods, in something like Skyrim or Oblivion or Morrowind, is pretty meh.
Yeah, and the best thing is we're exposing all that to the mods as well. So if someone doesn't like the way we've timed everything out, they can change the timing of everything and add their own animations in if they don't like ours.
Oh, that's fantastic.
All that stuff.
So are all of
oh,
your systems exposed like that? Like is there anything that can't be modded so far?
There's definitely some things right now, and we're working on expanding that as we go through. But like, so our UI right now can't be modded, but we're definitely going to open that up. It's just so what we're doing right now is getting just the foundation in and just making sure it works to prove that we can actually do what we want to do. Right. And then we're going to go back and really polish things up and open them up for the things that we don't have binding support right now.
Sure.
Like another one, I guess, like right now our lock picking isn't moddable yet. Like there's a lot of that stuff where we just let's just get it in there, get it to work.
Right.
And then get it really where it needs to be after.
Yeah.
So just it's like proof of concept type of thing right now.
Right. Well, and then the difference here between, your guys' scrappy squad and somebody like Bethesda's, Bethesda tends to put out that stuff, and whatever tools they launch with, that's it. They don't open things up more after the fact. And it sounds like from what I've read, from what I've spoken to you and read on your descriptions and stuff, is it sounds like your goal is to build this game up heavily around a community. And so the things that if a community of builders surrounds Isles of Adalar, you guys will make an effort to expand the tools that they request. That's about sums it up, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be listening to like what they want to do specifically. It's like, hey, I was trying to make this quest and I don't see anything that will allow me to do this specific part of it, and then we'll design the actual solution for that ourselves and then implement it in. But
that's very cool.
I forgot where I was going.
Oh, apologies, sorry about that.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
So we were talking about combat. You were talking about the fact that people could edit and tweak those numbers, and then you were talking about the UI, and that you were trying to lay a foundation here. That's where I cut you off there. Sorry.
Yeah, no, then I forgot what I still. Just
all
keep
right,
going.
It'll come back
later. Yeah.
So you've solved a lot of problems there. So you've solved the melee combat. I think Dark Souls is a great one to go to. I mean, obviously, and it sounds like you went easier. You went easier though, which is probably good. I think Dark Souls it's too hardcore for me. I get really frustrated playing that game. I think that again, it's a little too hardcore.
To make it harder if you wanted to. But,
okay.
So I actually remember what I was going to say is that we were actually getting some pushback from the forcing you to go forward as part of the design. And so that is one thing where I'll say some of the core design decisions cannot be changed. Like you cannot just change the whole game the way it functions as far as the core of its design. And part of that has to do with a lot of the multiplayer stuff. We have to at some point say, hey, you have to work off the same foundation and have the same at least types of files in order for your stuff to work together.
Right. Yeah, I don't think anybody expects it to be 100% fully moddable, but it's interesting to see what kind of systems you can change. Like UI is a huge one. That's one of those weird ones that Bethesda has not locked down, but has made very difficult to integrate with, to where it generally requires like extended EXEs to actually pull it off.
What I will say though is all the content as far as like quests and campaigns that is created like for the game that people play through is done within the game itself. So that's the part where we use the same tools that the team, like that the players have access to make the game itself. So anything that we do within the game when you're playing is doable from your end. Like there's nothing that we took out that's like special that we have.
Right.
So that's one of the big things that we've tried to do.
So what engine are you building on for this?
So right now we're using Unity 2017.3.
Okay.
And part of our tech and foundation stuff is once we get to our stable spot, once we have the foundation in and we know the systems work all together, even though they're not their final states, we're going to try to upgrade to the newest version, which has a bunch of improvements that we're going to have to spend some time getting. Like when you upgrade engines, it's not like hitting a button. Like there's everything breaks basically once you do it.
Sure.
And then you have to fix everything again. So we're just going to get stable, and that'll be, well, the version that you guys play right now is 2017, but when we hopefully get our funding and everything and release in 2020, that'll be the newest version of Unity, or 2019.3.
Right. Okay. So what is what would somebody who came in with Unity tools be able to do that others wouldn't? Is that or tools experience? Sorry. If somebody already knew Unity pretty well, would that make it easier for them to mod your game, or are you like a complete separate layer outside of that where you're going to have your own tutorials and stuff to teach people how to mod your game?
So we'll definitely have our own tutorials, but there's a few different layers. So there's one layer of like, hey, I want to go in and make quests and create stuff that you play through in the game.
Yeah.
That's all done within the game itself. But
Very
say
cool.
you're an artist and you're like, hey, I want to add my own character in and with animations and everything. So you would have to know how to import your model into Unity and set it up and add the animations on in Unity.
Sure.
And then basically you would export it from Unity as a file type, and then the game would read that file type. And then you'd go from, at that point, setting everything else up inside the game.
Very cool.
So like if you want to add in your own custom stuff like
Yeah.
that, then you'll need to learn just how to export it from Unity into the game.
And fortunately, that's such a popular game engine that there's so many resources available to show people how to do that stuff.
Yeah, and that aspect is super simple. Like the stuff you do in Unity it's relatively straightforward. It's just an import process, and then setting up a prefab, and then it's an export process, and that's it.
And then in the game, so you've got, and anybody who's curious about their editor, you can see it on, there's several videos on their channel to see how this
It's
works.
Also, the editor's in the demo too. Sorry to interrupt you, but so.
Oh, wow. The editor's available right now to play with? That's crazy.
Yeah, so
okay.
There's no save games because then people would literally just download the demo and then never play it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's no saving a game, but you could literally make a campaign if you wanted to right
That's
now
cool.
in the demo right now and just learn the tools and play around with them. We don't have any tutorials up yet because those
Sure.
take time and then stuff changes like
Right,
scale too much.
yeah.
But
Oh yeah,
you can
I know
definitely
all
look
about
at the
tutorial
levels
times.
that we have that we shipped with and deconstruct them and figure out how it works.
That's very cool. So yeah, so all that stuff you can do an impressive amount in the game. I mean, with build like laying out rivers and building complex structures, and then you have this like whole node system for setting up quests and the way NPCs react. It's pretty impressive what you can do all within the game interface.
Yeah, you know what's funny is I know you work on sim settlements, but I don't really know what sim settlements is. So I was like, I don't really know what part you do specifically from your creative aspect. So I was like, so when I sent you the video, I didn't really know like what you were gonna like.
What I was gonna focus on it. Yeah. I do pretty much everything now. I started out it was just programming, and then I've got a little bit of an art background, so I did a lot of the early design work for it. But now other people handle all that. Like they're way better than me at art. And then I do quest implementation now a lot of. So yeah, that quest stuff really stuck out at me. It was like, all right, that looks complicated, but there's no way it's more complicated than what I'm used to doing. It's probably just it's just a different format than what I'm used to looking at.
It's kind of like if you ever done like it's like writing a paper, right? You write a paper, and when you look at it from like a far out view, you're like, oh my god, there's a lot there. But when you read from the top, you just go.
Right,
you know?
right. From a glance at it, it looked like those Unreal shaders is what it reminded me of.
Yeah, that's kind of the foundation. Like, we're not linked into Unreal, but that's part of we saw that workflow, and we're like, that's a really good workflow. It's like you can visually see it. It makes sense. You don't have to know how to code in order to make stuff.
Right.
So that was why we went with it. So you could literally just start from the top and just read what everything does, like, because it'll tell you what it does.
Right.
When you select an action or requirement, it'll say, hey, stand here. When an entity with negative reputation is detected, then it like drags it to a different node, and then it's like a combat node. So like you really just gotta read it and just look. You can just follow it. But when you zoom out, it's like, oh, that's a lot. But
right. Yeah, I think those things are really intuitive for people once you show them. But I think it's always when people brag about it, and like you did the same thing, and it's Unreal does it. Is like when people talk about like, oh, it's so cool what you can do, and you show screenshots of it. It's like, yes, that is impressive technically that you have a system that does all that dynamically. But to any new user from the outside, it's like, that looks like a nightmare of strings.
Yeah. Well, that's also, so like I got started with my kind of creative game stuff with the original Far Cry because they had a level editor, and that was all just level design, right?
Right.
But so part of what we're thinking of here is like you have to have an entry point for people who like want to get into designing things but have no idea where to start.
Yeah.
And so there are some things that are just going to seem a little inaccessible at first, but because they have our levels and they can actually look at how we've done it, like they can literally copy things and then change certain things and figure out how that works. So I'm thinking that even if you're relatively new to design or kind of game logic on like the scripting side, that you'll be able to figure it out. You just gotta, as long as you can have general problem solving skills, you'll be all right.
Yeah.
Just trial and error, you know.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what a lot of it is with all these games that have their editors exposed. But it tends to be that it's intimidating to know where to start, because if you just decide to jump into your favorite scene, it's probably going to be overwhelming. And so, like, one of the things Bethesda did good, and I would recommend you guys do as well, was they created for Skyrim. They created like a basic tutorial series on their website that are just like, here's how you get a fetch quest running, and here's how you get an NPC to talk, which was really cool. Just to get people like here's the real basics. But obviously, you're not anywhere near doing that stuff, because that's like post-launch type of thing you do.
Yeah, so well, I don't know if it'll be ready for. So I guess I should go back and explain. So we're crowdfunding right now as this video is live to get ourselves about another 9 months. We want,
Okay.
and then we want to go from there and like do like a solid early access launch. And that's why we want to do it. It's like because we know that we're gonna get a lot of feedback, and so we want to have the chance to get that feedback, see what type of sales we get, see if we can pump back some better art into the project, stuff like that.
Right.
So the initial release will be early access. I don't know if the tutorials would be up immediately, but that would definitely be the goal. That way people can just hit the ground running.
Right. Okay.
But obviously if like something pops up and there's priorities, we have to push it back, and then that's like something that's not super high priority, you know?
So would you say that the editor side of this is like a key feature? This isn't like we'll unlock it after. This is like part of the launch plan. This needs to be there day one.
Yep. And that's why it's in the demo right now.
Yeah.
But so it is part of our long-term plan for this game. It's, we know that we're small, and even if, let's just say our crowdfunding blows up, or let's just say even early access it blows up and we get a bunch of money and hire extra staff, we still know that there's going to be a fine limit of how much we can do with our team.
Right.
And so we wanted to give people like the platform to just go with it.
Yeah. I think you guys are hitting on something really huge here, because I think the modding communities that can form up around games, like that formed up around most Bethesda titles, that formed up around Minecraft, are huge. They create just decades worth of content. They never stop, and it adds value to the brand. I think it's huge, and I think that most of the companies with these games don't engage with it. They're too busy trying to figure out how they can capitalize on the money directly themselves, instead of just recognizing that those communities are indirectly bringing them in money already. And it sounds like you guys have that baked right into your business model, which is awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the big companies now, they won't embrace it because they can't make money on it after, with the exception of charging a fee for your servers to mod on. Despite that, but no, and that's why most of them don't engage with that. And for us, it's like our goal for our company is we want to try to get to the point where we can make top tier games, and then just make the type of games that we want. And so if we can find a way to make that profitable, or not profitable, sustainable, right? That's the goal. That's the goal. It's like get it to where you can do it and not have to worry about closing down.
Well, yeah, and I think there's no reason. Like, unfortunately, profitable has become a bad word, dirty word. But all that means that means sustainable.
Profitable is sustainable, technically.
Right. If you want to keep advancing and going and trying to do slightly bigger things, you need to make enough extra money to support the extra time it would take to develop that. Like, it's not free to make this stuff. Like, it takes a lot of people's time. It takes a lot of resources to purchase all the things you need, computers and et cetera, and hiring for external assets like voice acting and things like that. Speaking of, this is a good segue. What are you guys doing as far as voice acting? I think I saw some talking characters, but that's obviously a big cost and adds a lot of development time. Are you guys going full voice acted for this, for your story?
So it's actually like a hybrid system. I describe it. So it's for example, let's say you try to intimidate a bandit chief and you're like a low level. Mm-hmm. You'll fail the speech check, and he might respond with something like, "I won't stand for this." But the text itself will be way more descriptive and be specific.
Okay, so I think I've definitely played games like that. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, so the speech that you hear, like our goal is to have every character have a voice response, but it's mainly just to give you the context of what they're saying and like the emotional resonance with it and how they're responding to you in general. It's just a general thing, so it's not the specific words they're actually saying.
Right, so it gives you kind of a feel. So then, if you're the type of player that's like, I'm not interested in dialogue, I'm here for the combat, you could listen to that and understand roughly what's happening and move on.
Well, it's just like if you do only speech, there's just a lot of feedback. Only text. There's a lot of feedback you're not getting, and that I think was part of what bothered me with Morrowind. Because even if they just said general phrases, I probably would have paid more attention.
Right.
But it's just to give you some feedback. But it also, what it does is it lets you be very flexible with your conversations. Like
Yeah,
you don't
absolutely.
have that limit of having to worry about getting the speech done for it. So
Right. Oh
what
yeah,
we'll
it's
do
such
is
a
we'll figure out exactly how many words we need to have like a good range, and then
right.
we'll be able to budget specifically for that for how many people we can get.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great idea. Well, and you can pull. I mean, you're a small company. You can pull off what Bethesda used to do, which is you hire like 3 actors and have them do every character.
Yeah, well, if crowdfunding doesn't go very well, that's what's going to happen. Just FYI.
No, I think that's
But
an interesting strategy because it also is more it's more friendly to modders because one of the
yes, because they
biggest
could do just like our stuff. Like
right
there's no difference.
they can expand on your characters and grow the story for you, which is really cool because you got, like you said, you're going to have a cap on the amount of content you can release, but the community could continue to evolve it forever. So if they really fall in love with your story, but are like, I want to see where else this could go, they could just go ahead and build it themselves.
So I guess so. Speaking of like the story, so a lot of people have pointed out that Adalar means isles or islands. So the name is Isles of Isles technically.
Okay.
And that's actually very intentional. So our goal for our story is going to be to explain how the world works and like how magic works and like the basic lore for the world.
Okay.
That way, when people make their own content, their own campaigns, it can be on a different island somewhere, but it makes sense within the rules that we set.
Oh,
And
that's
we're
cool.
gonna make it really flexible. And we're basically just trying to explain the big important things that every kind of fantasy world needs.
Right, right. So it's like the book one in Brandon Sanderson trilogy. It's always lay down the foundation. Here's how the magic system works, and then the rest is where the real story happens.
Yeah, so I think the core of it is to explain that the world's so big that not one entity can take over the whole thing. That way, people can have their own different stories and they don't interfere with each other.
Right.
Like someone goes, oh well, this guy's taking over the world, and then someone else is like, just has no idea what's going on. Like, so
Yeah.
that's part of why the world's designed the way it is. It explain like what a god is or like how that happens or is it possible, so explain
Sure.
that way when people make their stuff that they know where to work within, but we're still trying to make it so that they can pretty much do what they want.
That's a
But
good idea because I think that one of the things there's kind of a divide in the mod communities I see is that there's usually the most hardcore group wants very immersive stuff. They want all of their mods to play together, not only technically but also so that the story all fits together so that they can keep their character going through them. And then there are other people who are just like, I just want to see Spider-Man in every game, and like you
yeah, but
get
there's also like the idea of canon, right? So
okay.
the story is going to be set up to make it so flexible that as long as you aren't being stupid, your story could be canon within the world.
Oh, that's fun.
So
That's
that's the idea.
actually
It's like,
Bethesda is said to have done that with Tez originally. Is that they had their hardcore fans are the ones who wrote a lot of the back lore for the gods and stuff.
oh yeah, well I don't know if we'd actually ever come out and say that it's officially canon, but just to
Sure.
make it so that it's not breaking your immersion as a player. Like if you just
Right.
download someone's island and you walk in, as long as they've played the main campaign and they understand the basic rules that we're laying out,
Yeah.
their story should work.
Very cool. So is the I'm trying to get my head wrapped around the island system. So I know one of your dev videos I watched, you talked about how at some point, and this was, I mean, you did those years ago, about how you originally were envisioning you wanted to do something as big as any of the Bethesda style games, and then you realized you had to tame it back a bit because you're a tiny dev team, and that's excessively ambitious. And then you talked about how some of it became a technical limitation too, is in order to maintain the high speeds of combat you wanted and stuff, you couldn't have the rendering working at that speed, which totally makes sense. How big of a world space can you do within your game engine? Like how big can these islands be if you compared it to something like Skyrim, so the people are familiar with?
So right now the biggest that we can do is 4 square kilometers.
Okay.
But so that's part of where that R&D comes in, is we might be able to open that up a little bit more.
Okay.
And so our biggest problem actually isn't like raw FPS performance right now. It's actually memory and RAM.
Oh,
And
really?
so
Okay.
yeah,
That's
because
so
once
funny.
you go over the RAM, it's over.
Right.
So it's weird because our game runs really well as long as you have enough RAM. It's kind of, but
Yeah, that's a
so
weird bottleneck because that's one you think no one will run. Like I always tell
yeah,
other
well, it's
programmers,
because they
I'm like,
figured it out and we haven't.
RAM is
Yeah.
the one thing you never have to worry about. There's unlimited now, and then it's like, oh wait, that's not
Yeah,
always
well,
true.
that part of that is because we're so new. I mean, we've worked on this for 4 years, but if you think of us working on a game for 4 years, starting our company, and then Bethesda having like 30 years of experience,
Right, right. They
you
get to
know,
keep
so
evolving the same engine too
yeah,
most of that time.
so that's like our next big thing to tackle is get our RAM management and memory streaming hopefully down. So
Sure.
if like we know a way that we can get our RAM down, but we're not
Hmm.
sure if we're gonna be able to stream like RAM in and out. So
Right, right.
if we can't stream the RAM in and out, there's still gonna be a limit on the size.
Right.
But if we can, then we could potentially have extremely big levels.
But even, I mean, even at 4 square kilometers, that's freaking massive.
It's a nice chunk, and then what you can
Right.
still do is you can put fake mountains on the outside, and then just like go through a cave or something, or like a road
Right.
that like so you could put a fake loading screen to simulate a bigger area. But
Now,
yeah, no, 4 square kilometers is a nice chunk to run around in and explore.
well, and you can also take advantage of your island system of just make
Yeah,
it so
or just
that
go to a boat.
you have
and then
unlimited
go to your
islands,
island.
yeah, and you connect them
Yeah,
together, and then like having all those 4 square kilometer spaces is good because your character would persist between them. So like that seems like not a big deal at all. That's a giant space. Obviously, it's relative to like how fast is your movement speed and how
yeah,
populated it is. Like that can change the feel of that 4 square kilometers too.
yeah, and that's one thing. So like in the Bethesda games, their worlds are huge, but you have to load into everything.
Right.
You go into a city, you have to load into it. You go into a dungeon, you have to load into it, or a building, you have to load into it. So right now, we have the ability to do cities and buildings without loading into them.
Oh,
And like,
that's awesome.
assuming we fix the RAM issue, right?
Right,
So,
right, right. I was
but
gonna say
I'm
this
pretty
is one
sure
of those
we're going
things.
to. I'm pretty sure we're going to, but like
Yeah.
I don't like if for some reason that something is like if for some reason this ends up being not true down the line, it's because we had an issue with RAM. Just putting it out there.
Right,
But
right. I would
but we
say
know
let's not hold you to it because like
yeah,
sometimes loading screens are good to get access to like higher, you can go to bigger, more elaborate things. You can do
yeah.
you can go more hardcore with your art and stuff if you go into a world space. So we're not
But
going to hold you to that, but that would be
yeah,
really
but
cool because it's
I would
fun to be able to
personally
never have to
prefer
deal with load screens.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I would personally prefer to have load screens for the 4 square kilometers, but not load into buildings and cities.
Sure.
And that's kind of our goal is, if we force you to load in through massive areas, then we'll probably still have to force you to load in the dungeons. There's a chance we might not, there's a chance we might be able to get terrain holes in the future,
Okay.
but right now we don't have that. So it's possible maybe we won't have to load into dungeons, but you'll definitely have to load into large land areas. And then hopefully from
Sure.
then you don't have to load into anything else.
Right on.
Or,
Yeah.
or if
Well, with all
anything, the absolute worst will be you have to load into the city, but then the city you can go to the buildings, like
okay.
no problem. So that'll be the worst case scenario, just even based off our current limitations,
Right.
is that we would just take the city out because the city is like one of the big RAM problems for us.
Yeah.
And so, but if we just made the city its own level, and then you'd be able to go into all the buildings from that point on.
Right. Hmm. That's interesting. It's funny as a dev now, I've actually come to appreciate the load screens for the fact that I have an isolated little world space that I can play with. And
Yeah.
what would be, I think I actually think would be cool would be like a hybrid system to where it's technically it's its own little world in that it's not going to like that the developers don't have to worry about they can maybe fake the inside, it's bigger on the inside, give it the TARDIS feel, like let them play with that, but have it so that the load screen is like instant, so that it's to the player it feels like it was not there at all.
Yeah, I think some games will they start loading before you actually get there.
Yeah, a little preload.
Like, but so what? Like one thing that's interesting about our game is that our level files are really small, and that's
Okay.
because we build the level on the fly, and we don't actually load into a big level file. So like our level
Okay.
files basically are like, hey, this is the blueprint for the level, and then the game builds it like Legos on the fly, and that's
Wow,
how we
all
get
right.
the level editor to work within the game itself. It's because we have to be able to
Okay.
build the game inside the
Sure.
game.
So do you have an LOD system built into this?
Yep. So we've
Nice.
got there's two different ones. There's ones for what we call dynamic objects or items, which
Okay.
can stuff that can move and change.
Sure.
So that will use the standard Unity LOD system. But so this might change because this is part of a issue with our RAM is that we actually chunk items to objects together. So like right now we have I don't actually know how big the areas are, but we have like a grid of stuff that we chunk together. So you'll be in one chunk and everything becomes like one or a few different objects. Depends on the material IDs.
Right.
But that's part of why it performs so well because the game is only looking at say 10 objects in this like I don't know, let's say football field space
Yeah.
instead of looking at 50. Because
Okay.
even if the triangles are more, the engine has to say, hey, there's an object here, there's an object here, there's an object here. So it has to go through each one individually and then render it.
Yeah.
But what we're doing right now is we're combining them into one object and then getting rid of all the extra stuff. And so
Okay.
it just sees one object, but it's one big object.
Right. Okay.
So,
We call
like,
it.
this
Yeah.
hired-
People in my audience we call those S-calls. They're static collections, or what Bethesda calls them.
Yeah, so we're doing something like that, and it works really fast for the FPS stuff. But like I said, we now realize that there's a memory issue, so
So you
that
might have
might
to
be
change some of
slightly
yeah.
that might be slightly different. Yeah, I mean, well, so the new Unity is actually giving us a lot more access to the actual rendering pipeline. So
Okay.
we're going to be able to hopefully tell it specifically what to render instead of checking for everything. So like right now, if you have a level with
Okay.
1,000 objects in it, Unity's looking at all those objects to wonder if it has to render them or not. But
Oh
we already
yeah.
know because of our grid system where you have to render things. So
Right.
we're hoping that we'll be able to tell it like, hey, don't look at this 1,000, just look at this 100, you
Yeah.
know,
That
and that'll hopefully offset the difference in performance when we try to fix our RAM issues.
right. Yeah, and a lot of these problems will probably be solved just because some of the new tools will have improved so much in that 2-year span.
Yeah. It'll be a big engine update for sure, and it'll work somehow. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. Well, you
I
got.
mean, we
That's,
figured it out so far to this point, so we'll figure something out.
sure. So what? How much engine development do you have left versus story content development? So because there's a lot of phases to this, and it can take a lot of time. Like, obviously, you guys have spent a lot of years developing out your engine tech, and it looks like you've been slowly working on kind of the style you want to go with. I've seen you've made some iterations on that. I know one of the common talking points I read that people felt it was a little too muted. They wanted to see more vibrant colors, and you've started to tweak in that direction. So how much of the style and story do you have left versus how much of the underlying tech do you have left?
So we have like the layout for the story, like a very rough draft of it, but we
Okay.
don't have like multiple hours of like questing you can just go through and run with. And so
Sure.
full disclosure, the demo that is available on Steam right now is what we have.
Got it. Okay.
And so there's basically like 1 or 2 more core things that we need to do, and then it's just then we can actually straight up start making the final quests.
Right.
And
Right.
so part of what we have for our team is that once we get those next 2 big ticket items, which are stealth and a bounty system,
Okay.
that's the only thing preventing the quests from really being fully fleshed out.
Okay.
Then there will be part of our team who is full time doing quests, and then the other part who's still doing the extra tech stuff.
Gotcha.
But
Okay.
yeah, so I don't want to try to mislead people and think that there's this massive game that's available right now that
Right.
you're not seeing. Like what we have right now is what you get. And
Right,
so
yeah,
that's
you
part of
guys
this whole
are-
thing is we're trying to
you're trying to crowdfund
but
right
we're trying
now.
to-
Absolutely,
yeah, and we're
yeah.
trying to be honest and say, hey, look, this is just what we have, and hopefully on good faith people will either like it and want to keep it going, or if they don't like it, then obviously they wouldn't. But
Right. Yeah, but I think the core elements you've got going on are exactly what Bethesda players want. In fact, I would say you're taking it up a notch because you like the co-op and better combat. I think those are the 2 biggest missing features from something like Elder Scrolls. I think the in-game editor is something nobody realized that they probably want, because I think it's kind of like if you imagine Fallout 4, for my audience will get this reference. If you imagine Fallout 4 workshop mode, but dialed to 11 in Elder Scrolls, like that's kind of what you guys got going on right out of the box. And one of the things that you haven't really talked about in any of your documentation that I found so far was, could this be used as a gameplay element, like as more of a, like if people who maybe aren't interested in releasing levels, they're just like, I want to be able to build my own house. Like, can they just use it for that? Like, just use it as a gameplay element?
so I mean, obviously the foundation is there for that, and so we spitballed a bit about maybe changing a house up, like if you bought a house and maybe you could change some stuff.
Yeah.
But we haven't made like a final decision on that. But it's definitely
Okay.
something we thought about. But so the thing is, like, worst case scenario, you could just make a private island and then make your house on there, and then you just go to
Right,
that
just
private
do it
island
like
to. But we have, it's not out of the question yet. I'll say that.
Okay, I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around how the editor. So it's an in-game editor in the sense that you log into the game and you just go to the editor mode, but it's not an in-game editor as you like hit pause
doing it as
and
you
go
play,
to.
yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that something that could potentially be in the future, where like it's kind of you could real time go into like Dungeon Master mode where you're at your character, or is that like that's too complicated for what you guys are targeting right now?
So in a sense, it already does that, but it's reversed. It's more like you're in the editor and you can go real time into the game.
Okay.
Like if you were trying to design something,
Sure.
but if you're thinking about a dungeon master mode similar to like Divinity Original Sin, the answer is no.
Okay. No, I was more thinking like if I'm playing the game at like single players, I'm not playing it online co-op. Is there anything separating out the gameplay logic where I couldn't just jump into editor mode? Like, I guess I don't know enough about your behind the scenes stuff.
So yeah, like we don't give you the access to the button you'd need to press in order.
Right.
To go to
But
the flank
technically,
camera.
technically,
as far
could
as
it
like
be there?
yeah, as far as the tech is
Yeah.
there because that's how you build the game, right?
Right.
So like if we made that button available, technically you could do it.
Because that seems to me like that could be really cool, like a really unique
Yeah.
feature. And like
So,
that
like, a
was
lot
just
of
something I saw when I was watching your demos of like the house being built and stuff. It was like, oh, this is just like in editor mode, but really, there's no reason that this couldn't, unless I'm not understanding the tech. There's no reason really this couldn't be set up to be done accessible from the game. It wouldn't be very immersive, but when you're
Yeah,
talking
so that's
about
like
a moddable game that's like heavily user inspired, then like usually people don't worry about immersion when they're doing Minecraft, for example.
yeah. No, we definitely. The idea is that you download a campaign and play through it.
Okay.
So like we don't want you necessarily just tearing up things while you're trying to play.
Okay.
But so like I said, we're thinking about maybe doing it for houses. Like maybe we let you build a house if you have an
Right.
area, like a certain area you're allowed to.
Okay.
But this is actually an important tech thing for people who've got experience with game development. Usually there's a point when you make something in an engine and then you have to hit a button and then wait.
Yeah.
It's usually
You like bake it effectively.
yeah, like a baking and a build process. We do have a baking process, but it's really fast.
Okay.
But when you're in the if you're in the editor, you can iterate like you're designing a quest. You can make some changes, hit play, you're running around. Then you
Right.
test it out. Then you go back in the editor, make some changes, hit play. It's instant like that.
Sure.
And so that's one of the things that it's like you're saying the tech is there just to pop in and out.
Yeah.
But we do it on the development end, not on the playing end.
Right. I guess it had me hyped up the idea that in the future it's theoretically possible you could come up with some sort of reverse mode where you could basically the player could play with the editor in the middle of their own save file, which could lead to some very interesting, not even if it wasn't gameplay mechanics, just an interesting way to play, to be like, you know how like if you're, for anybody who's playing mods, sometimes you'll just be like wandering around, you're playing mods or you're playing the game and you're just like, I don't like this thing. Is that your game is uniquely positioned to be like, I could just fix it right now without ever leaving the game. I could just like pop into God mode, fix that thing, zap back into my character, and it's better. Like that seems like it could be a really interesting, unique aspect of this.
Yeah, you would like the way it is right now. You'd have to at least just save, then go back in the main menu, and then come back in.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, there's
So
very
theoretically,
few barriers. There's very few barriers to actually do that.
That's very cool. And we'll
So
be
maybe
especially
if you make a riot online, and then eventually maybe we'll do it.
So that leads to another question then. What is your do you even have one yet? A plan for community management and distribution of all of these files? Like, are you going to have like an in-game server finder type of thing, or is this going to be like a website people distribute?
Talking about for like multiplayer or for mods?
No, for both, for multiplayer and for distributing mods effectively. So like you have different ways to go about it. So like Bethesda just recently added mod support in their games, like within the menu. But prior to that, it was always done through third-party sites and stuff like that. And then there's also, you can go the Blizzard route, which is just that there's a game, like you can just find people's maps, custom games right within the game. And that's kind of a feature they always ship with. Which route are you going to go? Or do you have not thought about that?
So I guess technically both.
Okay.
So we'll have Steam Workshop integration. Like in the demo, it's not really functional, so we actually made it so you can't click on that button.
Okay.
But like when it's done, there will be like like almost like a mod manager through the Steam Workshop.
Sure.
But then if you want to, like if you like using the Nexus, you could still manually put the files where they need to be. I mean, it's pretty simple. You just need to have the right level files, and then have the campaign files, and then have the mod folder, and then just drag and drop that.
Nice and easy.
So I guess a bit of both. And then for playing multiplayer, just one of the players is the host and the other's the client. So you just host it yourself and you invite them in. So you just invite friends in. That's it. You don't do like a what do you call it? Damn.
Like matchmaking or anything.
Matchmaking, yeah. You don't do matchmaking. You just invite someone who you already know.
That makes sense. Yeah, that doesn't seem like the type of experience you want randoms in.
Random guide.
Although inevitably somebody's going to take your mod tools and create a battle royale, and then they're going to want randos. So you may have to switch and change that out eventually. Okay, well that's interesting. I always forget about Steam Workshop that they've got like a built-in open API to let people do that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean that's part of like our goal is to like really limit the barriers of entry for like getting into mods and all that stuff. I mean, I kind of knew mods existed for a while, but I never really got into them until the last few years because it's just so intimidating from someone who doesn't know about the stuff.
Sure.
And so we really want people to just be able to open up a browser, see a campaign, and go, "Oh, I want to play that." download it, and then say, "Hey, come play with me," and have their friend come in, and it'll automatically download it for them and everything.
Oh yeah, that was my next
You know?
question. I was gonna be
Oh
because
yeah. So
that's one of my favorite
yes,
features of like Minecraft servers. Usually they'll just start downloading all the mods for me when I connect. I don't have to like go find this complicated load order because right now, if we were to drop mods or a multiplayer support onto a Bethesda title, it would be a nightmare.
yeah, with the mods at least, I can imagine that. Yeah,
Yeah,
no, we're trying to really just streamline it and make it super simple and accessible.
brilliant. That's what you should be doing these days. I mean, I think that's the community creations are such a huge value add that I don't think enough game companies appreciate, and they should. And it should be very obvious to them because you look at like the most popular games in the world right now, and like most of them came from mods originally. Like the Dota style, like League of Legends exists because of mod. Like the current battle royales exist because of Arma mods that evolved into PUBG, which then was copied by Fortnite. Like all of the most popular gaming formats for the most part came from mods originally. So you would think that like why aren't these companies just embracing these communities out there and like having more community engagement and making it easier and just encouraging that on every level. So the fact that you are making that, like you have 2 bullet points on your Steam page at the moment. I don't know, you might have changed it by the time this goes out, and it's just like RPG and level editor. It's like that's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like some people look at it like some people who aren't really part of the community, like our friends, and they're like, "Hey, you didn't really describe the game much." I'm like, because the people we're trying to attract, when they see it, they're gonna know exactly what it is.
Right.
Like with you, I showed you the trailer, and you were like, "Yep, I know what this is."
This is
and so it's like
we're looking
for our early adopters and like kind of more hardcore community type people.
Right.
One, and then we'll kind of, because it takes time to really get all the presentation of everything, and we're still now we're like, all right, let's get the least amount of time that we need to waste on this specific like website thing, and then let's get back to working on the game.
Sure.
Like we're still at that point. We're not.
So I mean, you're at the point now where anybody who wants to join into the community and become an early adopter could actually still influence the development in the direction, which is exciting to be a part of. Like that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast. Is like this is really cool that you're at this stage, but you still have something that looks very polished. It looks obviously it's you guys don't your team isn't a bunch of artists.
No.
So I think we'll still probably see improvements over time after you get more funding.
Art and animation will definitely change.
Sure, but your core gameplay loops look solid. It looks like you you're coming from a background of loving the same titles that I think most of my audience loves, which is that Bethesda open world RPG, and then you're taking some of those systems and pushing them to the next level. So it's really you're hitting on all cylinders there, and I think you definitely are choosing the right target. Obviously, I'm jaded. I obviously am being a Bethesda
me and you are in the
person,
same mindset as far as how we feel about the rest of the industry right now. And I try not to, especially on like things are recorded like this, I try not to go too hard because it could bite you in the butt later.
Right.
But so a lot of times when you see these huge crowdfunding games, and it's part of the things that frustrates me is that the relationship has been broken so much between a developer and the community, or just gamers in general. There's so much mistrust, and that's why we're doing the demo to say, hey, look, all right, everything's not perfect and polished, but the foundation is real and it's there. And so so we're trying to give that to people so they could see it and feel it, and they go, okay, I like this core direction and I want to support this direction,
right?
Versus oh, this trailer looks amazing, and it ends up being like not real gameplay and all that stuff.
Oh, I know the whole crowdfunding thing is such a weird phenomenon of like the number of campaigns that I've funded that have never come to fruition is too damn high, and then you see. And then you see like big studios trying to get in on it, and it's just like it's like this Wild West mess.
It's a publicity stunt sometimes.
Yeah,
like you'll definitely see like certain studios where they do a crowdfunding campaign for every game, and it's like, can't you just make your game off the sales that I can see that you made from your last one?
Right.
But that's another part of it. It's like it's just no one knows what to expect anymore, and so it's definitely soured the waters for us. Like if we had this game 4 years ago, I wouldn't even be worried about anything. I would know that we would crush it as far as crowdfunding. But now I'm like, man, am I going to be homeless in like a few months?
Well, and I think well after that, and did you see that thing with that dragon game that just got like that axe?
It's so funny. I saw that as it was happening, and I looked to my business partner, and I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" Because I could look at that game, and I could immediately see like, okay, I know where they got that. I know where they got that, and I'm looking at it, and I'm not seeing anything other than the things that I know of online.
Yeah.
And that's where some people might say we're hypocritical, because if you know where to look for, we use an insane amount of assets for visuals.
Oh, I
But
think
the core of the game
those
itself is what we've
right.
developed. Like the actual foundation and the code is what we've developed in the design.
I think asset reuse is exactly what indie developers should be doing, and they should be
You
doing
have
it.
to. I mean, it's just
Yeah,
not possible with manpower wise.
right, absolutely, and
Like
like
you got to pick the things that are the most important, and that's what you do yourself. You get that foundation, and then have
right,
that other stuff like support up the foundation, not be the. That's the problem. That's like the idea of the
yeah,
asset flip, right? Is that you literally just
right.
bought the asset and flipped it. You know, if your
Well,
game is the asset, then you have a problem. If the
sure.
assets are part of the game, then it shouldn't be a problem theoretically. But I
Well,
think a
what
lot of people have a problem with that still.
Yeah, well, and
So
I
they're
think
just
that's going to go away
misunderstanding
eventually.
a little
I
bit.
think they're misunderstanding completely, because I think what I think most people don't realize is that all games are going to be asset flips eventually. Is that
You know,
there's
that
no
actually reminds
reason
me.
for AAA titles to continue. Like, there's only so
Oh
much
yeah,
fidelity. Eventually, there's no reason for them to keep rebuilding the same buildings and cars and things like that. Like, for example, if you look at the current like Forza games and stuff, is that like they're so photorealistic. It's like that car isn't going to change in real life, so they're not going to change the model again. They're going to keep reusing it for a long time.
so let me let you in on something. So the new Call of Duty,
Yeah.
they have some of the same rocks that we have.
Ha ha ha. That's awesome.
And so the AAA is already doing it, but people
Right.
will assume they're not. You know, but the thing is, but it's like I said, like they create the core of their game. Like I'm sure all the
Right.
guns and animations and stuff they all make themselves.
Well, and now
You know-
now that they're getting into photogrammetry, it's just going to
Yeah.
be a moot
Yep.
point now. It's just like, well, there's only one Empire State Building. Every game will have the exact same model. So, like, I think that asset flipping is just going to be the norm soon, and then it can stop being a bad word. I think it's a bad word right now because too many games have done the dragon thing of like
Well,
making.
they've tried to sell the asset as a game almost.
Right, right, and like then that's
or not
eh.
not distinguish enough, like not distinguish their game enough from the asset.
Yeah. But
And
I will say with
yeah.
the just a quick thing about that dragon game. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, there was a little indie startup that was trying to just build like a dragon simulator. They wanted a real tiny amount of money. They asked for like 10 grand, 12 grand, something like that. And because Harry Potter's, I think it was their AR game that did this, had like a dragon event. And so Google's algorithm, when people searched for the name of that dragon event, also brought up this crowdfunder. And so they made, what did they make, like $500,000 or something?
Yeah, it was also a pretty big YouTuber made a video on it, and it got like 1 million views. And
So
I
like
think
those
that's-
two things just
like those two
blew
things
it
got
up.
both. And that's another part of this problem is we're experiencing this right now, and that's why I'm so grateful for you having me on. Even though you're like, oh, my audience is small, I was like, dude, I don't care. I just want to talk to people. But you'd be surprised how many people have emailed me. Like I emailed over 200 people about this game. I mean, I picked out these YouTubers over the course of the last 4 years. I've been researching this,
Sure.
and literally most of them have either totally ignored it or they've emailed me back and then pretended like they were going to do something and then wouldn't do it. Like I even had people say, hey, yeah, I want to do an interview. And then I just never hear from them again. I'm like, hey, we're still here, you know? But it's that thing is that so many people have been burned that
Right.
the YouTuber, like a lot of these YouTubers know that if even just talking to someone is an endorsement basically. And so if our game ended up sucking and was like, if our game was an asset flip,
Yeah.
your audience would be upset with you. And
Right,
that's
right.
part of the issue is that everything's been broken so far before we even got to this point that it's hurting us.
Sure.
You know?
Well,
It's just a
I will
shame.
say from my perspective, the reason that I had you on, regardless, even if you were an asset flip, is to me, you are a fellow developer. You obviously love the same space I do, and you're trying to do something. As far as I can, make of what you're describing in your game, is it sounds like you want to do the type of things that I want to see happening in the game community. So even if you aren't successful, or even if you were doing an asset flip, just having this conversation with you, I think shows people that there are some good developers out there who are trying, who are trying to make the kind of games we want to see.
Well, that's the thing is like I think a lot of the people who make asset flips, I don't necessarily think they're trying to be malicious. I think they
Right.
just don't know how to make games.
Right.
And so they're just like, oh, I want to make a game, and then they try to do it, and then it flops.
Right.
Because they don't know what they're doing. So all they have is the assets. They don't know how to actually make anything. And you know,
Right,
it's
well,
funny because I actually made a game just like that, but I was smart enough not to try and sell it. That's kind of the big difference.
Right. I think a lot of people don't recognize. Like, I think it takes a while in developing any type of skill to understand how to take it to scale. Like I've made this mistake many times where I think I can take an idea to scale, and then when the rubber hits the road, I'm like, oh, I didn't rethink through this at all, or didn't think about all these problems that will crop up. Like the people on that dragon game you can see by their messaging that they're clearly struggling to be like, all right, how can we take it to scale to be worth this $500,000 so that we can keep this money?
Now they have that $500,000, and then there's this expectation that goes with it, and that's part of the huge problem.
Yeah.
And for them personally, it's like they didn't ask for a lot to start with, so I don't think they were being malicious, but I think they're responding to this in all the wrong way.
Right.
Like
if I were
handling it from then, like it overwhelmed them, and then now it's just a shit show.
Yeah. I almost think if they wanted to get like some mad props, and it would go viral if they did this. If they said, you know what, guys, we're going to take our original 12 grand, and then maybe we'll take another 8 so we can step up our production value a little higher. And then we want to refund the rest of it. And like, just be like, we're not ready for this kind of thing. Like, I think that would go viral. That would be huge of them. It would be honest. And I think people would really respond positively to that.
I personally wouldn't do that. I think that's one of those things where it's easier said than done.
Oh, absolutely.
To be 100% honest.
Oh yeah.
But if I was in that area, like say I was in that level of like my development career and like really didn't really know what I was doing that much. And I mean, I still learn stuff all the time, and sometimes I think I don't know what I'm doing. But let's just say I had that dragon game, right?
Right.
If I got that 500 grand, what I would do is I would just hire the people who could help me get it to where it's supposed to be. And I wouldn't promise the world. I think that's the problem is like you see Kickstarters, he asks for 12. Once he gets that 12, you have to make your stretch goals, right? I would just say, nope, like let's limit whatever, like let's not do crazy stretch goals. Let's just make something that I think we can actually make.
Yeah.
And then if anything, use the leftover for like marketing or something.
Yeah, it's a tough one because those dollar bills, man. That's.
But I wouldn't. I wouldn't. I mean, people gave it to you for a reason, so I mean, at least just give them something and do what you originally were going to do, and then just try to make that money, amplify it without promising the world. That's. So
that's the tough part with that.
Yeah.
Like so people are it's going to be tough because like they promised the $12,000 game. And this isn't meant to be a whole podcast knocking on this. It's just such an interesting phenomenon. Yeah. But like I'm just
the game
thinking,
you said you were going to make the first time, right? And then
right. But then people are going to
find something to do with it, right?
You said,
don't promise anything though, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't promise anymore. But I don't know that I would. You almost have to like. Because you can't, if you release that for $500,000, like what they were thinking of for $500,000, then it just looks like it was an asset flip. So you're almost, by taking the money, you are forced to try and up the production value. But I think even what you said, this is something I think I hear a lot of people say things like this, and I don't think they understand the brevity of it. Of saying things like, I would just hire people who could build this thing. I don't think that's that easy. Like hiring high-skilled people and suddenly being able to integrate them with your team, like that's not a quick process. It's not necessarily something everybody has the skill to do. I don't know that I could put together a proper team to build a $500 million or a $500,000 game. And I've got tons of development experience.
Yeah. What I meant, I guess, so it's funny that what you just said is stuff that people say to us, and so I didn't explain myself good enough. But,
that's right. That's right.
No, I wouldn't tell them to like hire like programmers and stuff. I would say hire artists and animators, just stuff that could make stuff you could plop into your game, like
Right.
Or like sound guy, like have somebody make some sound, like that type of stuff. That's not like that's what kind of pisses me off is like sometimes people have said that about this. They're like, oh, if you make a bunch of money, you just hire people to do this better. And I'm like, but we're the ones making it. Like it's ours, like we're just going to take the time to keep working and get better. It's like, just hire people to make the game for you. It's like, but that's not why we're developing things in the first place.
Right. Yeah. It was like, if that was how it worked, then most games would just get made by rich kids paying people to make games. And that just doesn't happen. Like the games get made by Right. I think games actually get made by people who are passionate about it. I think you're right though. You could go the route of paying for individual assets, but I would say that like the cost of piecemeal assets that aren't asset flips, if you wanted custom assets, is way more expensive than actually hiring more passionate developers, which then takes a lot of time. So it's kind of like one of those, like money can't solve all problems in this case.
Yeah. Well, and he probably wouldn't be experienced enough to actually manage that properly too. So that's the whole thing is like when you start that early and when you succeed that much, it is bad. Like it is too much too quick for your infrastructure.
Right. So having seen that tale, you have to have already gone through, even if only in the like the sense of like where you sit down with your SO and talk about what it would be like to win the lottery. Like, what do you think? Like, have you and your business partners had a discussion about like, all right, what if we get the dragon scenario and we hit 10 times or 50 times or whatever, however much it was over our asking? Like, what do we do? Like, have you had that discussion? Have you had that dream discussion?
Oh yeah. So we have like a priority list, or at least I do, kind of mentally. Sure. So right now, I know our weaknesses more than anyone, and so I would just be, like I was saying, addressing individual weaknesses.
I guess I should caution before we continue. I don't want this to become, people then start thinking about this as like, this is the feature list. So like, just want to reiterate whatever he's about to say right here. This is just like in dream world, this is what you might do. Okay.
So that's actually part of the strategy, is that you don't, it wouldn't be for promising features. Like I hate stretch goals. It's so fake, because that's not how games work. It's just like, that's basically feature creep with money. But what we would start with doing is like replacing things that we don't think are good enough. Like, for example, our animations are subpar because we don't have a professional animator. But we have the foundation, so we know exactly how many animations we need for our system.
Gotcha.
So I'd say, hey, I need these 32 animations for these monsters. Because I know that it works in the system, so I would hand that off to someone who's a professional and pay them for it. Like, so basically, because our scale is so stupidly big, I don't think we'd ever, have a problem with spending the money on contractors.
Okay.
But it would all just be contract stuff to replace things that we eventually would like to replace anyway.
Gotcha.
So I would probably start personally with our game with like the player character, kind of amplifying the character creation, having better hair, better skin and stuff. Then probably do the outfits, because they're hit and miss because they're all from different people.
Right.
And so I would try to get a uniform quality level between the most important things in the game, then kind of scale down to the less important things the more extra money you have.
Right. Yeah, that
makes
makes total sense. It would
just be like a la carte type of stuff.
Sure. So that you could manage it yourselves. You don't lose the vision of your game or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's smart.
I think that when you do crowdfunding so early, I don't really know that game situation enough specifically. I guess we probably should stop talking about that game.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about. I feel so bad for that team, because they are in a position I do not envy. They were just they were kind of the extreme example of what can go.
Perfect example of
it's a perfect storm of like this weird environment we're in, and I think it's one of those ones that like ebbs and flows of like, people are going to point to that for a long time now about like why you shouldn't invest in Kickstarter games and stuff, and
that's exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah.
I was like, damn, man, it's but the thing is, like, so when you start that early, you don't know those lessons yet. Like, you don't know what you can and can't do, and so you're so much more prone to making mistakes. And so we've been doing this in December, it'll be almost 4.5 years, and so just giving you that time to make mistakes ahead of time, you learn better how to manage everything.
Well, and hopefully, like something like this demo that you've got right now, you'll get a lot of good feedback from people. Hopefully, anybody listening to this, you get a chance to go try that out and see, how does it compare to your favorite experiences from Elder Scrolls games, which is something they were trying to capture. But then taking that beyond that, so like improving the combat system. Did they do a good job of that? And I think that like telling you guys that, giving you guys that kind of feedback at this phase will help to make sure that you're continuing down the right track, because like it looks like you're on a very, very good track right now. And so you're not only going to have your own experience to bank on, but you're also going to get feedback from players who have actually touched the thing.
Oh yeah, and that's part of why we also want to do early access, is because we know that once we get that, however many thousand people, like from their feedback, we'll be able to make it better.
Yeah.
And so like we don't want to just rush it out and say 1.0, since we are so lean and mean. Like we don't have high operating costs.
Yeah.
So we can afford to go through that iteration time.
And I think early access was designed for teams like yours. I hate that like Fortnite is technically in early access. It's like, get out of here.
Yeah, I totally I forgot about that.
Every game now is just like, oh, we're early access. It's like, you're just taking advantage. Now you've turned it into a buzz term instead of what it was actually. It was clearly designed for indie studios to use, to be like, hey, like we can't afford a QA department. Like we don't have market research. We're just going by our guts here. Like, can you help us out and give us some feedback? That's what it's for.
And it's like you said earlier, it's like if there's something you like being made and you see the foundation's real, if you're in, like, you have a chance to help it get along and like have an influence on it. And I think a lot of people are interested in that too. It's like, hey, I like this game. Let me start playing it and talking to them, and maybe I can get something that I can see it in the game. Like, I suggested that. Like one of my friends or online friends suggested the lock-on system, and I was like, you know what? I don't know. I thought about that, but then disregarded it, like, because it was really early on, and I just totally forgot about it. And so every time he sees our game now, he's gonna see the lock on system and be like, hey, I suggested that.
That's awesome. I'm really excited for if people embrace it, what they do with the love letter. Because one of the other cool things is that you could also end up having happen here. And I don't know, I don't know anything about your crowdfunding campaign or how you go about it or how you want to engage with the community or how you're going to do that. But one of the things that came to mind when I saw this was like, you guys could actually, during this early phase, is if people are designing stuff in game and they want to see, and like they design cool stuff that you guys could make use of structures, is that you might end up being able to incorporate some of those. I don't know what the legal aspects of that are, but it could be really cool for some early backers to see some of their own creations show up in the game, in the launch title.
Yeah, well, there's also potential hires, down the line where it's like,
Sure,
hey,
sure.
we see these people making crazy stuff. If we get an extra budget, we could hire some extra level designers. You never know.
Yeah.
And that's also part of why I like the Bethesda modding scene, is because they already want to make the type of game we want to make.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
if we get extra money, I can already look to some of these bigger projects like Enderal and be like, hey, let's try to see if we can poach some of them and see if they want to if we had the money to pay them, obviously. But
right.
But because they're already on the same wavelength as us,
Yeah,
you don't have to
absolutely.
like really teach them the core direction.
Right. Well, I think the next way, I mean, it seems to me like you've got the good skeleton as far as the gameplay loop. You have something that looks very intriguing. It looks, I mean, it basically looks like if somebody took Morrowind and rebuilt it today with the common gameplay expectations. And then you have this really cool feature with the level editing. You've got the co-op built in, like all these things. I keep harping on them because this just all seems so fantastic to me. So the one thing that I think you haven't really locked down yet, I think you guys are still into this phase, and it sounds like part of that is just you need to get to the state where you can afford artists, is like having figuring out what is your lore, what is your art style, because I think that's something else that can capture people's imaginations. Like Bethesda games, I think they have two phenomenal franchises that have very distinct feels to them, very unique world spaces with lots of lore, and people are really in love with those in Fallout and Elder Scrolls. And I think like if you can find the secret sauce for that too, I think you've got a just massively successful formula here on your hands.
Yeah, I mean, so our visuals are like generic to a fault, because you can't commit enough to something between just the assets we have access to. But yeah, I mean, in an ideal world, I mean, I would love to hire just concept artists to just rework the overall visual style for everything. I mean, obviously we're going for like not photo, like the photorealistic style of believable, not stylized.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, part of why I love Morrowind is because it's so unique looking,
Sure.
And that's like we want to distinguish ourselves visually. And that's part of why I have the dog character as the kind of main mascot. So if people they're gonna be like, hey, like they'll see the dog and they'll be like, that's that game. I remember that one.
Yeah. For me, when I saw it initially, I was just like, oh, they're trying to capture the Khajiit feel. Like that's a good move. That's a good smart move.
So we don't have a whole lot of like super unique things right now, but I would love to address that. Budget willing. So
right.
We'll see.
Right. Yeah, I think that's when Bethesda really took off with Elder Scrolls, because their first couple of games were really just generic fantasy. It wasn't until Morrowind where it was like, oh, they're actually, because before, when even Khajiit, I think, started out as humanoid. It wasn't until later games that they turned him into cat people.
Yeah, I think in 3 they I can't remember if they had weird legs, right? Or was it the Argonians who had weird legs?
I don't remember, but I remember that it was like they took a while for them to develop kind of a unique flavor for that game.
Yeah.
Which is interesting that they were able to pull that off. I feel like you I don't know how much time you have to do that anymore, but obviously if you're during an early, this is exactly why early access is perfect for indie, because then you can take ideas like that and be like, all right, now we're starting, we got our gameplay figured out and we're starting to flesh out some lore, and then you can look for the things that are resonating with people and really like hammer in on those and maybe find your niche that way.
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing, is like, this is our first game of this scale. I mean, like,
Right.
So my business partner that I work with, he's worked on a bunch of games before, but they were in like the early 2000s, and he kind of took a break from game specifically programming and started programming more commercial stuff.
Okay.
But we've never done anything to this scale. So a lot of this has been us trying to do things, failing at them, learning from our failures, then redesigning it and then making it better.
Yeah.
And so when we get to early access, that's part of the point. Is like, we know that we're not going to drop game of the year in 9 months.
Right.
So we want to just make the best thing we can, and since we can afford to, like I said, with our low overhead costs right now, we can afford to iterate. And so
Right.
why not, right?
Yeah, that's another thing that I just had this conversation in one of my Discord servers of the expectations for game companies now are so unrealistic. It is no wonder that we get these horrible predatory practices from the AAA studios, is that we expect like these experiences that are unlimited. We want everything to be photorealistic. We want unlimited story choices. It's like none of that is even realistic in the AAA space. So it's especially not realistic in the indie space. But you do, like I said, I think that you are embracing one of the ways that you can get to infinite replayability, and that's embracing the community.
Oh yeah, that's the only way for someone of our size, for sure.
But
Or
I
you make
think
something procedural.
right, and procedural, I think everybody hates procedural. I think it's like you feel it real quickly that it's procedural. I mean, like there are games that do it fairly well, but unless like that's your core focus, I still think people catch on. There still has to be some sort of handcrafted gameplay loop on top of that procedural. The one I'm thinking of that does procedural levels. It's a Diablo clone that gets developed in quarterly updates.
Path of Exile.
Yes, Path of Exile. Thank you. Like all their level spaces are procedural, but all of their gameplay systems that sit on top of it that do your character management, like that's where the real gameplay is, and that's all handcrafted. And so, you can do parts of it procedural, but you can't do the whole damn game procedural.
Yeah, that's the other like kind of hack. But that was just like I said, I like directed narrative experience, and so that's what we want to do. In order to get that, you have to have people creating things. So
yeah, and so you can harness the power of the community. But I think even you said the only people of your scale, that's the only way you can do it. My argument is that like it doesn't matter what size you are. I think every company should be doing this.
Yeah,
I think
it's a good benefit. But for the infinite growth idea, you can't do that, because then that's the whole problem that Bethesda's having right now, is they're like the people are still playing their old games. And we ran into that mentality you're talking about with like the expectations. It's like if you're not first, you're last.
Right.
And like we've gotten that feedback from plenty of people. Like they look at like I've literally had someone look me in the face when we were at a convention. They said, "Why would I play this over Skyrim?" I'm like, "Why do you have to pick one?" It's like also Skyrim's like 8 years old. Like, do you not ever want to play another RPG because you played Skyrim before? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, well,
I don't function like that, but
see,
we've
here,
gotten that feedback before. It's weird.
Sure, but that guy right there is a representation of exactly why embracing the mod community is what is important, and it doesn't matter that it's not getting you more sales, because you've just got brand loyalty. So now you're in Disney territory. Now you can make your money off of merchandising, which Bethesda's trying to do. I'm on their. I bought a couple things from their store, and now I'm on their mailing list. They send the amount of merchandise they have available for their franchises is unreal. So many new things come out every week, and it's not even like simple stuff like T-shirts. It's like, here's a cell phone battery charger that looks like a fusion core. It's like real complicated stuff.
Wow.
And so like I think that is what these companies need to remember, is that brand loyalty and like people wanting to buy crap like that only comes from being obsessed with your products, and mod communities can make that happen. And
part of like the investment thing for me is like, so we know that Skyrim has sold over 30 million copies, right?
Right.
And so in my head, it's like, as long as we keep working, there's potential to eventually get in that area. I mean, obviously that's an insane amount of sales, but like the AAA companies now, it's like they want to get as much as they can in a short burst and do it again like next year. It's like,
right. Well, now they're trying
a huge ceiling. It's like you can get your game up to that ceiling if you keep building it up, because then the game becomes something greater and greater, and then people start talking about it more. Like you'll see these crazy mod teams like remaking whole games inside of one game, and then people go, "Oh, now they know about that game and want to play it." So it just keeps growing on its own.
Yeah.
But there is a cap at some point, and that's kind of the problem with the infinite growth, stock market mentality.
Right. Yeah.
Which obviously we don't have
sustainable
to abide by that. So.
Yeah, that's very, very true.
We just want to find a balance where we can do it and like just keep doing it.
That's what, like, when I'm not a fan of the Path of Exile's gameplay loop. Like that doesn't do it for me anymore to play. Like I used to love Diablo 2 back in the day, but I can't do it anymore. I just don't enjoy it. But their mentality, when you listen to their developers talk, is like they get it. Warframe, same way. I'm not a fan of the game necessarily. Like I'm not in love with the lore or the gameplay loop. But their developers get it. Is they're just trying to create something they love, and they're trying to get it sustainable so that it's self-sustaining and they can keep doing this for a long time. And both of those games are very successful in what they're doing. They're employing a lot of people to follow their dreams, and like it looks like you're trying to do the same thing, carve out your own little niche, and make it a long time thing as opposed to a cash grab.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like, so everything that we're building for this game, we don't lose it when we make our next game. You know, all this
Right.
tech and level editor stuff just goes right into the next thing. And then it's like
Yeah.
you said, you get that installed user base because the
Right.
people that end up becoming our fans, when we make something new, they're gonna buy it. And that's what I don't understand. Is like, you know, with Bethesda specifically, is, you know, every game they've sold since Morrowind has sold more than the last one, except
Right.
for this latest one, obviously. But so it wasn't like they were losing out.
Right.
But it's that idea is like, oh, you're still playing it and we're not making money. That's a problem. It's like, but no, it's not. Like, what are you talking about? Because if you make something new, they're still going to buy it.
Right.
You
Exactly.
know,
Well, yeah. Well,
like,
I mean,
they'll probably
it's
still go back to the other games like sometime down the line. You know.
Yeah. Well, I think that depends on who's driving the car, right? Like, 'cause I think what one of the theories floating around the community is that what's really happening here is that Bethesda is gearing up to go public, and that they're trying to show high regular income. So that's why they're trying to go software as a service and microtransactions to pump up those numbers. And that I think if you have a developer at the head, then you're going to get more. You're going to get features that are more gamer friendly as opposed to looking at things in the short term and trying to boost financial gains.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is like, so the people who make the big decisions need to be the ones who make the game, and then you don't have to worry about anything after that. But then technically, I guess you do, because even
you got to keep the doors
I,
open, because like I guess
yeah.
Bethesda also has the history of before Morrowind they were about to go bankrupt. So I bet
Yes.
I've argued that's probably in their DNA now. Like they just can never forget that, so they're always worried about money.
Sure.
Even if
and
they're
I'm not
doing
actually
well.
talking about Bethesda specifically right now,
Sure.
but it's very much possible to have someone who shares that mentality leading
Yeah.
a studio. So like you don't have to actually be public and have to actually answer to the public and have to show growth every year. You could just have someone who has that mentality of wanting to chase the
Right.
growth every year. But most likely that won't be the case if it's the developers themselves who are actually calling the shots.
Right. They're going to be focused on like, I just want to do this cool new feature. Like, how do we get there?
Yeah. And that's our thing is like, I want to make something that I'm just like really proud of and like personally, you know, like I just want to go out and kick ass, you know, and that's kind of, it's weird because I don't want to like prop us up as like, oh, we're going to take down Bethesda. 'Cause, like, let's be realistic. That's not happening anytime soon.
No, that's CD Projekt Red's going to do that
manpower.
long before any of us get the
that, and then
opportunity
maybe
to.
Obsidian. I mean,
Oh, maybe with their
it's really
power
good.
of
I haven't touched it
Microsoft
yet.
right now. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I've got
you
it
never know.
sitting. I've got it downloaded right now, but I'm like, I got to get through my to-do list for the week before I can let myself play. It's a tough.
I basically
That's
can't-
tough, man. Finding
I
time to
basically
game
can't touch
anymore.
Anything. I
Yeah.
can't touch anything for like probably till the end of the year, and then it'll be Cyberpunk. I mean, not Cyberpunk. Outer Worlds. Then I'll probably play Red Dead. Then Cyberpunk in that order.
It's hard to find time to play games when you're developing, which is kind of it's funny. You almost need to find time because you do need to like keep your finger on the pulse of like what are the features players expect. But some of the games now, like that thing we were talking about with the players have this crazy expectation out of games. So now games are just like crazy long too. It's hard to keep. So then when you're strapped for time because you're burning all this time developing, that then even finding the time to go through even just the main story of games is a challenge anymore.
Well, that's part of. I think that's all part of their design, though. They're intentionally trying to keep you in because then they can keep making money off you. I mean, that's the whole 76 thing. I mean, I played 76 for over 200 hours, and I don't have a good experience overall with that. Like, yeah, there was some fun I had in there, but most of it was me grinding and trying to get to the fun. And so, but it seems like every game is designed somewhat like that, or it has that element in it separately. Like Red Dead has the story, but then there's the online component where it probably is designed that way.
Yeah.
And like we're just not going down that path because that's not what we want.
Right.
But I think that every game is just, and that's why like I'll play, I don't know, I'll play Apex Legends when it comes out, and I'll play it for a week or two, and then I'm done. I'm like, all right, I'm not going to do that over and over and over and over and over again.
Right.
That's what it wants me to do.
Yeah, that's why I have trouble getting into multiplayer games anymore, is because usually I like the only thing that could keep me engaged there would be the competitive factor, like the actual gameplay, or either like just hanging out with buddies and doing it, or the competitive aspect. And I've lost my competitive bone anymore. I just don't have it in me. Like I like to compete in, are the things I'm doing being I like to compete with myself almost. Like it's like, is the thing I made today better than the thing I made yesterday? Like that's more interesting to me than competing with somebody else's skill with a mouse.
Yeah, no, see, I'm the opposite. I'm very competitive, but I know that I'm very competitive. So like, I don't want to get caught on the treadmill because then I'll be on it for a while. And so I just bow out. I'm like, it's like a drug addict. You just stay away from it.
Sure. Yeah. I can get that way with the card games. Like I used to travel and play Magic the Gathering and try and get onto their pro league and stuff. And that gets me really hooked in. Or like Hearthstone, I've gone on some binges with that. So I try to stay away from that stuff now for that same reason of just like, all right, it's kind of like a drug. I gotta just keep it at arm's length.
What's funny is that, part of that, it's either, like you said, it's either competitiveness or it is the procedural stuff, or it's either grind, competitive, or procedural. And we've seen that actually start to happen with some of the Bethesda games. That's part of, I think, a lot of people's gripes with Fallout 4 is, oh, look, another settlement needs your help. The procedural system,
Yeah.
that they're trying to keep you in the game, but then they're mad that you're in the game too long. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what the correct flow is, because those procedural systems, like that's the core of a game. Is just like everything, you have to build at some point. There has to be a loop to it. Otherwise, you're only going to get like the amount of time it takes to develop like a unique narrative experience. For example, I just finished up doing some quests for our next update for some settlements, and I have about 80 hours into doing these 4 quests. And it will probably and I'm just the implementer. Like there's all the people, there's the voice actors who are involved and the artists and everything, and like the players are going to get through all of that content in like an hour. And it's the scaling is bad.
So the demo that we have right now, it's about 30 to 40 minutes, I think, for the average person.
Yeah.
If you actually pay attention to everything. I guess it could be shorter if you just run through and kill everything and run to the end.
Yeah.
But like if you engage with the systems, probably takes about 30 minutes.
Okay.
And that took me about 2.5 weeks to make, 3 weeks, but also because I wasn't doing it 100% full time. I was fixing things, testing things. Sure. But yeah, so the rate that we can create narrative is drastic. It's not even close. I used to think like, oh, if I can work for a week, I could probably get an hour a week and then we'll have X amount of time. Now I'm like, oh fuck, we need help. Like, we need people that do this all the time, and that's the only job.
Well, and especially if you, like, in the same way that gameplay needs to evolve in complexity, so does your narrative. You need to get to a point where you're getting to bigger moments and bigger set pieces, and those are going to be more complicated to do. Otherwise, you just end up with, like, the MMO quest loops of, like, what is it? It's kill something, fetch something, activate something. Like, that's all. Those are the actual only types of quests, and, like, you just end up with that.
For games like this one, too, there's so many side things that you have to set up that aren't directly engaged with the player. Like, I was thinking of, like, I'm assuming there's not going to be an inn in our Indiegogo video, but I was thinking about, maybe I should make like an inn. And I thought about it. I was like, I have to set up every single NPC and then give them all the different logic. And I'm like, that's going to take forever for a 10-second trailer shot.
Right.
I don't know if I'm going to do it yet. And part of that is, and I think part of the answer to that is designing better tools. And this is actually one of the things is that because we're so small, we have to innovate because we just can't play by the same rules that these bigger companies do. We can't throw people at it. And that's part of the stuff that we've done with our tools so far. If you watch that tools video, it'll be very apparent. The stuff
that looks so easy to build with. Like, and I agree 100%. You gotta take advantage of your scrappy nature, and you can try out new things. You can innovate tools more rapidly and just go with them. Just run with these experimental tools.
I've already started thinking about maybe designing a system where we can go to an NPC and then say, hey, go to this building and this building, like we can assign it to that person, and then they'll maybe automatically see what's in the building and have the ability to interact with it without us manually telling them to for every single thing.
Yeah, I mean that's what Bethesda's games do. They call it sandboxing, and it automatically handles all of that. It's that you have to do it like we had to at scale like that, and I think you almost have to do it with. You probably are going to have to do it in your system with like basic dialogue trees too, which I think you can get away with that because you have your system of you only need a few voice lines and the rest can be written. So then you can then pay copywriters to just generate you mass amounts of dialogue for generic NPCs.
Yeah, but that it sucks for us because we have to fix the problem. But when we fix the problem, all of our mod creators and community people will have that fix that they can use.
Sure.
And so that's one of the things I see, like these big teams working on, Sky Oblivion or all these remake mods, and I'm like, these things have been in the works for way longer than our games have, and I think that we've probably made more raw progress if you consider us developing gameplay.
Yeah.
But I think part of that is because they're using tools that are used by a huge company, so they don't have that perspective. Like the company doesn't have that perspective when they use those tools, and so these the small scrappy teams are like trying to limp along because they don't have the horsepower to just throw at it to get it done.
Right. Well, I think also. Well, I mean, there's also the difference in the scrap teams. You guys are building something for yourselves, and those big teams like the Sky Oblivion project and stuff.
Yeah.
They've been going on for 6-7 years, and I think it's also because it's all volunteer based, and like There's usually a couple of people at the core who are doing the lion's share of the work, and they're just trying. They have to like figure out what exactly they're going to do, and they don't have the ability to just create new tools on the fly because they're locked into certain limitations of the game engine. You guys can just, like you said, you can just kind of think outside the box and create new solutions because you're developing the engine level too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean it is a weird situation, and I'm hoping that once these kind of big teams finish, hopefully they'll finish their projects, and then hopefully they'll take a look at us and then consider starting to learn it and maybe making some stuff.
That would be really cool. That would be an awesome a segue in. Hopefully you guys can get to that spot. I think right now it sounds like you've got to first get past some funding goals. Make sure you drum up some interest and see some people engaging with your level editing and giving you guys feedback on how all these systems are playing together.
Yeah, so I'd say if you're interested in doing the feedback, the best place to do it is probably the Steam forums. So we check our YouTube comments and our forums every day, but it's best to go back and forth probably on the Steam forums.
Sure.
Because then eventually we'll have the workshop stuff, and it'll be directly in the forums, the community tab and stuff like that.
I am a huge proponent of forums, especially for things like suggestions, because it gives more time for, like, it's hard. But a lot of people, most young people now want everything in Discord. They want it all real time, or they want you to respond on Twitter or Facebook. And then and those are great tools sometimes, but I think people are going to ask for that. So I'm going to ask you, do you have any of those things available? Do you have like a Discord set up? But I will say, even if you say no, I will understand, because I think that certain things are better on forums.
So I've got a Discord set up, but it's private right now.
Okay.
I think it'll actually be part of our reward tiers.
Sure.
And it'll probably be private for a while, and then once we can hire like an actual full-time community manager, then we'll probably open it up to be public.
Oh, you're a smart man. Like public. Yeah, everybody else like, why don't you have a public Discord? I'm like, no, I don't have the resources to swat Nazi symbols out of my Discord channel, so it's never going public.
So we'll open it up so that way the people who are interested in like funding us more than like, you know, the basic pre-order can have some sort of extra access to us.
Sure.
But, you know, we do want to get those things, but it's like you said, there's a hard limit on our abilities to even just absorb that information.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've gone through just with a mod of periods where I'm having to spend 3 or 4 hours a day answering questions, and like that's not sustainable, especially if you're trying to build the actual product people are asking questions about.
Yeah, I've become like addicted to checking our YouTube stats, and so I keep refreshing my videos, and I'm like, oh, how many have we got now? Like our trailer is like really close to hitting 68,000 as we're recording this, and like I'm checking, I'm like, oh, are we there? I'm like, oh God, we're like a few hundred away. Come on. but so like I get that too. It's like we've made plans like up to this point, going with the normal rate that we have, and now I'm like, oh geez. Like I have to start planning for just like time that I would consider to be almost wasted, like checking these things. But I guess it's not, because you get to interact with people and get feedback.
Right. It is definitely definitely wasted if you're just.
It feels like it's wasted though.
It's wasted looking at analytics. It's definitely not wasted if you're engaging with folks. If you're looking at comments and stuff, I definitely am on that side. But yeah, I've sometimes found myself in that trap too of like looking at numbers. I'm like, this is not useful time. This is not a good use of my time. But I think engaging with people usually is, because you can start to identify the people who are true fans versus people who are just like casually interested, and sometimes you can convert. If you're willing to put the time in to talk to people, and like, you know, when you get those guys that come in, why would I play this over Skyrim? Those are those conversations like sometimes are worth having, because you can sometimes make a pretty big fan.
You give them the attention, and then they start to evaluate you more. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I have directly had some of my biggest supporters and some of the people that have hung around the team, and maybe they either contributed directly or are just very, very active in the community now, have told me that they joined in because I was so engaged with other people, even some people that they thought were too toxic to engage with, and that they just said my attitude was contagious and they were sticking around. So I 100% am on board with people engaging with their communities. I think it's a really, really good idea.
So our third employee that we have right now, who wasn't a co-founder, he's actually someone that I met from doing Twitch streams. Like very early in the day, I used to do Twitch streams of development, and then I stopped doing that because I was paying too much attention to the chat and not working. But, you know, I opened it up and I said, hey, I even let people jump into like TeamSpeak with me and just chat while I was working. Okay. And we just ended up talking, and then now he works for us.
That's very cool.
So, but yeah, it's like, you know, when you put the effort in, people appreciate it.
Yeah.
Even if it's small stuff.
Is there a chance of people watching? Like, I know you were doing more of this earlier, and I know we had a conversation before this podcast where you had said that you had to slow it down because you needed to focus on actual development. Do you think that there's an opportunity maybe for some of your backers to watch you work, especially on quest and level design, since it'll be in the engine? Because that seems like that could be a good way to jumpstart other people into creating content, like even before you launch. Like maybe they're getting some sneak peeks of stuff, but if they're supporters, it would be locked behind anyway. Is that something you've thought about doing?
I don't know. It also heats my room up and I start sweating like crazy on my computer. But in my head, I'm like, I want to do it. I want to do all the things.
Yeah.
But I don't want to promise that because
Sure. I was just thinking. I'm just thinking aloud here. Is that it seems like it could be a cool way to train people indirectly if they got to like not only get a chance to see, because if you're building a lot of the quest content yourself, you could, if you were doing it live or even if it was just recorded videos, people could then learn from that to build their own quests.
You know what I would really love to do is to have a full-time level designer who streamed and did that for us instead of me personally doing it.
Yeah.
Then I would be all for it.
Well, first you got to get that funding.
Yeah, exactly. So if you want to see those streams, make sure you go to the Indiegogo. Just kidding.
Oh no, that's you got to get out there. You got to market it. This is something that is so weird about the scene right now in game and software development is that marketing is key even when you're giving your stuff away. Like you have to still spend money on marketing, which is so funny. So like you're here to market. Like there's no question about that. You got to get people in there because games like yours can't exist unless we support them.
It has to be word of mouth because we don't have the budget to just throw it at marketing campaigns. And then it has to be actual some sort of conversion for support, which like it sounds shitty when you say it like that.
Yeah.
But the big boys are in their position because they have enough money to continue to be big boys.
Right.
So you can't become a big boy unless you make some sort of money. And so that was part of why I did this, in the first place, not this podcast, but this style of game, this ambitious game, is because I was like, I want to make big things and like stuff that like it's just stuff that people look back on. It was like, that was a crazy game.
Yeah.
In order to do that, we've basically got to a point where we have to have outside help.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, and I mean, you're basically drumming on something like Walt Disney is famous for saying, which is, I don't make animations to make money. I make money so that I can continue to make animations. And like that's kind of the mindset I think is great for creators in any field. Is just like the reason that you're driven forward is not because you're chasing a dollar. It's because you're chasing a bigger vision, and bigger visions cost money.
Yeah, we wouldn't have made this style of game if we were trying to just make money. 'Cause it's way too fucking difficult. For, like just that end goal only.
Right.
It's also hella risky.
Yeah, absolutely. But much less risk for you than a big company to try something crazy like this. So because
it's funny, I totally forgot about this, but for the longest time, I was like terrified that they're gonna drop Elder Scrolls 6 because I was like, dude, if Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, we're fucked. Like no one's gonna play our shit. They're gonna be like, why? Like they're gonna do why would I play Skyrim? But at least Skyrim.
Yeah.
If Elder Scrolls 6 came out and our game came out like a year later, people wouldn't even touch it.
Yeah.
So I was. It's funny. Like every E3. Well, now I'm not worried about it because I kind of know their plans now. But for a while, I was like, every E3, I was like, oh, dreading it. I was like, oh my god, did I just waste like years of my life just to get dwarfed by this massive company?
That's what our team thought when and I've had this conversation with a lot of the big project teams doing like Fallout 4 conversion mods where they're, like the Fallout Miamis and Cascadas who are trying to do whole world spaces. And every one of us had the same experience as the E3 that 76 got dropped because we all knew it was coming because they did the trailer a few days before where we're all like, we're all like, oh my God, did we just waste several years of our lives like on this project that we haven't quite brought out yet? And then it was like, oh, nope, never mind. It's online. No one cares.
Well, at least you weren't trying to support your family based off of it,
Right. So yeah, it was wasted effort, and also I'm homeless now.
Yeah, that's rough. Now it's like I have my wife, which I recently married, is like I'm putting way too much pressure on her financially, and like I feel like shit for it, and I'm like I need to get out of this situation somehow. And it's like if I spent 4 years of my life trying to build up to something and it's completely failed, it's like, oh god, that's hard, man.
Yeah, no, we don't want to see
but
anybody.
But again, like we don't have to do crazy numbers to get by. I think our actual goal for our Indiegogo will be pretty high, but it's like that's like a best case scenario because Indiegogo you get whatever they give you. Like it's not like Kickstarter where it's all or nothing.
Right.
So we're just gonna put like our kind of best case scenario out there.
So that way, if you get dragoned, people will already know what you're planning.
What we're trying to do.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, but James,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, is there anything else that we didn't cover that you want to talk about before we wrap up here?
No, I mean, I would just say if for some reason you've made it to this point, definitely check the demo out and follow us on either social media, YouTube or something. Give us a shout out, and we'll shout you out back. And yeah, just check out the demo, and then if you like it, just consider helping us out. We're trying to make something that I think that you'll probably like. And so yeah, that's it.
Awesome, man.
But yeah, thanks for having me on for sure. It's been a blast.
Yeah, great talking with you, and I'll definitely include links to all that stuff down in the description. So if you're looking to go try this out, it'll be a quick link to go grab a demo and to the Indiegogo campaign if you already like what you heard. So thanks, James, for coming on, and I'm really looking forward to see what happens with this game. It's looking really cool.